Hey there, welcome to One Take, powered by backers.
Right? No judging.
Yeah,
no judging.
And the millennials are really changing that.
Is charm.
No. All success begins with desire.
I feel like I'm on fire right now.
OMG, baby, tell
Hey there, welcome to One Take, powered by backers. Justin Fox here, joined by Janette Burke. Janette, thank you very much for joining me here on the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Justin. I was so pleased when you reached out to me on LinkedIn and invited me to be interviewed by you today.
Yeah, it's I don't know if it's the pinnacle of your career, let's put it. It may be the base. This is the starting point. No. So obviously you are a host, creator, award-winning TV personality. So yeah, we wanted to, obviously talk a lot about women in business, leadership. You're a producer, media personality, as I mentioned. So very much wanted to have you on here. So that's why we reached out. I think you're probably about the 110th guest we've had on the show over the past year. So I kind of just randomly just started doing it back at the beginning of the year last year when COVID hit, and had some good guests on. Hopefully, I guess the bar is set. So now you can set it even higher.
Okay, well, I promise not to disappoint you.
Perfect. So, as I said, low key, no pressure here. So tell us a little bit about yourself. We'll jump in into where did it all begin?
It all began a long time ago, actually. I started out, well, let's go way back, if you will. When I was just a kid, I used to pretend to make TV shows of my own. And I used to have this thing I did called Cheap Kitchen. I used to do it in my mom's kitchen. It was about making meals cheap. And I was like 8, and I used to pretend there was a camera and all these things going on. But let's jump forward many, many years. After that, I was a publicist first with a company called Primetime PR, which was a boutique PR company here in Toronto. And I did that for many years. And while I started out doing everything a publicist traditionally does, including pitching my clients to the media to get them whatever I could in print, radio, TV, satellite, internet, whatever combination we could get, I quickly transformed a little bit, because what happened to me was I became a figurehead for my PR company. And how that started was I actually put myself on a media and speaking tour, very much like what I do now for my clients when I media mentor and train them to become sought after media interviewers and speakers on world stages, including the virtual stage today because of COVID.
Right.
So
the world we live in, right?
Yeah. So what happened to me was I was doing all the work of a PR person, and then I kind of honed in on doing the publicity strategizing, getting the hook, the angle, the storyline together, and then actually training my clients to appear on camera for media interviews and on stage for speaking. And I had somebody come work for me who kind of followed my lead in terms of the strategy and executed the actual pitching on sending out of the media pitches and the press releases and the media materials that I would create and strategize on. So we knew what the hook and angle and the storyline would be, how we would pitch them, but she would execute the calling and the following up and, sending off the materials and the actual booking, while I then concentrated on preparing my clients to take the stage and to be on camera, which meant they had to be media trained to know what message to get out, to appear a certain way, to have a certain image, to be cognizant of their nonverbal cues, such as their eye contact, facial expressions, body language, voice techniques, and all these things that I now teach in the media training aspect of my business. So while I was busy doing that and also circulating on a speaking and media tour, including a stop at the Learning Annex and like speaking all over the Greater Toronto area, and my media tour included like a constant column every month in the York Region Business Times, which sorry to say is no longer around, but at the time I was writing a column in there 800 to 1,000 words front or back cover every single month. And I was doing
Wow.
many other things as well in the publicity realm. So that eventually I went to be a guest on a show,
Right.
and I had done a segment on PR and marketing. And the minute we stopped airing, they asked me to become a permanent segment on the show, which
Wow.
I did. I did that. It was called the Magnetic Marketing Moment, and I did it for roughly around a year, a little bit more than a year. Well, eventually, the fellow who had that show, I was mentoring him too, and his show got picked up by JLTV in the US. So he
Okay.
wound up leaving the network.
Wow.
And that's when the flagship show came to me and said, come be a co-host and we'll double your segment as well. So I did that too. I did that for another, I don't know, 18 months or so, maybe longer. I lost count. And then the original guy came back to me after he came back to Toronto, and he said, I'm actually starting another network. Why don't you put your show on my network? And I'm
Okay.
like, oh, I don't think I'm ready for that. But they convinced me. And on November 28th, 2011, I'm Every Woman TV was born. And I did that for another couple of years. And then we parted ways, and I went to another network with my show for a brief period of time, about 6 months, and actually to take my show with me and my following. I actually had to change it from I'm Every Woman TV to Janette's I'm Every Woman TV, just to be able to keep the name.
Okay.
So I did that for another couple months on another network. And then I said to myself, I'm done with these networks because I am working my buns off here and I'm building a following, and I'm getting us into big events like TIFF and all this. And I'm not really getting anywhere because I wasn't allowed to have my own following. I wasn't allowed
Right.
to promote my own links. It was all controlled, right? So I decided that wasn't going to work for me. So with only 700 people following me on Facebook, I then left and had a brief hiatus period while I regrouped and formed Janette Burke Productions,
Right.
which is the producer, and I'm the executive producer of my own show, which we in season 9, because we're presently in season 10, rebranded it to Janette's TV. And you were saying in the course of COVID, you started your podcast. Well, I started the sister company to
Much later than
TV
what you had
show.
done. Much later than what you had done. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. After 10 seasons, we're in season 10 now. So after season 9, I decided halfway through COVID, probably around the beginning of COVID, Marchish,
Yeah.
to create the sister company to Janette's TV, which is Janette's TV podcast. So
Okay.
I brought that out as well. And basically, I serve as executive producer of my show.
Right.
I am also the host and creator of the show. But I am more than that, because in addition to being a media personality and a producer and a host and creator, I'm actually a media mentor and trainer too.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about, because I mean, that was one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is, so I'll just, how am I doing?
How are you doing? So far, so good.
So far, so good.
Yeah.
I mean, you of anyone could give me feedback on what I'm doing so far, but so
well,
tell me a little.
I could, but
it's okay. I don't need it.
see
I
the
don't take
purpose in
feedback
that.
well. I don't take feedback well. I'm just kidding. No,
I don't see the purpose in that unless, we were really, talking strictly about what media mentoring is really involved. Of course, I'm always happy to give you a few pointers, right?
Yeah, no, I was just kind of kidding around. I was kidding around. But so let's actually talk a little bit about that, because I think it's interesting that, we had a guest on a while ago, and he was talking about like booking spots and like doing sort of that, like the PR side of things. But I think you brought an interesting point up around the media mentorship, around really like coaching the people around sort of the, like what to do. You talked about like the nonverbal cues and kind of like how to present themselves on camera and what they need to do. Like if you were to, and the reason I bring this up, because a lot of people, like myself included, over the past year have had to, they're stuck at home. They're looking for different outlets to maybe to get themselves out there, whether it be social media, whether it be, I mean, as simple as TikTok. I see a lot of people are doing these little skits, which are pretty creative and amazing on TikTok or Facebook, or, you know, a lot of people are finding these outlets. What are some of the things or maybe tips that you would give to like somebody starting out their own podcast? You mentioned you just started out, you know, a while ago, your own. What are some of the tips that you would give to somebody who's looking at doing, whether it's live on air or whether it's just audio only? You know, what are some of those tips? Like, I don't know, what top 3,
Okay, so
5 tips?
we're covering a lot of ground here, but let
Yes.
me just answer it like this.
Yes.
Whether you are going to do a live or make your own video,
Right.
or you want to be a sought after media interviewee or speaker on world stages or give a TED talk, it kind of all boils down to the
That's
same
a wide
thing.
range, right? That goes
It's a
from
wide
like,
range,
yeah,
but in terms of
yeah.
getting ready for these type of opportunities, it boils down to sort of the same 3 key things that I actually, I'm going to give you some tips now, but I also want to mention that I am running a free masterclass on this very issue.
Okay.
And that free media masterclass starts June 16th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard
About a week
Time.
from now.
Yeah, and at the end of the interview, I'll actually tell you how you can register for that. Okay,
cool.
So
that was like a hook. That was the hook right there.
That was the hook. Yeah. So
at the end, stick around to the end, and Jenna will tell you how you can sign up.
But I want to give you sort of the 3 commonalities, which we will call tips, and what you need to have sort of nailed before you go on any camera or any stage, for the reason of, you know, doing a TikTok or any kind of video, any kind of live, or any kind of media interview, podcast interview, speaking, or TED talk. You got to know 3 things, and you got to get this down and polished and get it down well. So 1 is never go on camera or stage unprepared, meaning don't wing it.
So that I got X number 1. I do that.
Okay, you
time.
should have some idea of what you're going to say.
Right.
I'm really a stickler against just flipping on a camera or going live and, you know, really not knowing what you're going to say or having sort of any rhyme or rhythm to it.
Right.
Because when you don't, you tend to ramble on or just kind of go all over the place. And it's really ineffective, especially as a marketing tool, which we all know, video, podcast, whatever, it's a part of your marketing.
Right.
So I believe that you should have some kind of outline idea, even if it's a loose script, just bullet points of what you're going to be talking about. And I believe that you should have your intention sort of, you know, there, like, what is, why
I agree with that. You're right. You're right.
Why are we doing this? Like, we're not just there to showcase ourselves in sort of an egotistical fashion.
Right.
We have to have a purpose behind what we're doing in order for it to be strategic and convert as a marketing tool.
Right. I agree with that.
Attract ideal clients and what have you.
So maybe we don't have the X, because I think for just not to cut you off there, I apologize, but for that first point with our show or with what we're doing, I understand. I mean, I do a little bit of background research on the guests. I kind of know what they're like. I have some idea of where the conversation is going or might go. I don't actually prepare questions or prepare any sort of like direction, but I do know where it's going. And I think overall the concept of our show, I'm trying to apply your tip to ourselves so that I can sort of see where we're going. I think our direction is the people that are watching this show or the people that we're speaking with really look to the experiences of people that might be a little bit ahead of where they are, and maybe can give them those tips, whether it be in business or whether, you know, we're talking here about on-air
tip
presence,
number
right?
1, as I said, is don't be esoteric.
Okay.
I believe in prep for everything, and I always prepare very heavily for a media interview. Not only the research on the person's background, but I do also craft customized interview questions and make sure that the answers are going to pull out the most key relevant points of their marketing message, so that they're getting that out and they're not missing that opportunity to get it out, because, you know, this is a golden opportunity for publicity and exposure. So just getting back to what you asked me about, I mentioned, so that was tip
Step
one.
one,
Tip
yeah.
two is to be cognizant of your nonverbal cues as well as your message, because we are being judged, opinions are being formed the minute we appear on a camera or stage without any words coming out of our mouth. That's because only 7% of what we communicate as human beings is actually spoken words. The rest of it is all nonverbal. So your nonverbal communication is equally, if not more important than what's coming out of your mouth,
Right.
but it should equate to what's coming out of your mouth. So in that regard, you know, these are things I teach also in my masterclass and in my new media course about how to, you know, work your body language, work your eye contact, work your facial expressions, and also how you show up. So we're in business, we need to walk our talk. When we go on a camera, we have to be representative of our brand. And otherwise, we're in a disconnect, and it's very hard to build the like, trust, and credibility factor, which is part of your aim and your goal, without walking your talk. So, for example, you know, I'm a media personality, and I don't know what you do aside from the podcast, but
I
I
run
show,
Backers. I run a software company that finances small businesses, and I run a
okay,
3-on-3 professional hockey league called the
wow.
3HL.
So when you show up on camera, you want to give, you know, you want to be representative of that brand, right? You want to
Right.
look the part, because otherwise it's a disconnect, right? And right
Right.
away, I told you, people are forming opinions of you from the minute they look at you. You got to walk your talk. You got to be your brand. You got to show up and present yourself the way you say you are,
Right.
and the way that you the level of service that you're trying to be, or the level of client you're trying to attract, or the level of fees you're trying to charge, right? It's I equate it to when we go networking and somebody hands us a shabby perforated business card. Are we going to take them super seriously when they also say, you know, I charge X amount of dollars and I'm top of my field? Probably not, because
Right.
you wouldn't expect a cheap perforated business card to come from somebody who claims to be something else. That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
Your image is important, and your nonverbal is important, as are your words, and they all work together.
So what are
that
some
was tip
tips to
two.
what are some tips to like improve that? Like, I think that's an interesting component around, you know, you talk about like obviously presentation. I mean, I think the whole notion of dress well, feel well, all those types of things, you know, presenting yourself in a, you know, I'll admit I haven't shaved, probably clean shaved in about a year, but I mean, I understand that, you know, that definitely it's, you know, the first impression is often what will carry you through,
Yes.
right? And so,
and in business, we need to be very cognizant
right.
of that. So some tips to prepare for that.
Yeah.
Tips
Well, on
for
the
example,
tips. Tips for the
for
tips.
example,
Yeah.
like, you know, when you, before I ever go on any camera for any purpose, like I make sure my makeup is on, right?
Right.
So, you don't have to do maybe as much as I do. I mean, I grew up with a mother that was a makeup
Yeah.
artist, and my father was in the clothing business. So, you know, makeup, hair, and clothing is very commonplace for me. And that's why I teach my clients how to dress, right? But it's not that hard to go into the closet, because that's all I'm doing. I didn't buy any new clothes lately, right? We're in COVID. Just go into your closet and pick an outfit that's, you know, speaks well, represents you well, and maybe try a few different tops, or, you know, mainly tops, because on these type of interviews, split screen type of interview, you're not going to see, you know, anything but from here up, right? So the top is going to
we could all
matter.
be wearing shorts, right?
Exactly,
Shorts
or no
and
pants
flip-flops.
at all.
Well,
And
yes.
and
Hopefully we
then
have
in
pants
terms
at
of,
least.
you know, looking professional, at the very least, ladies,
Right.
it doesn't take much to throw
Right.
on a bit of makeup, right? Like,
Right.
even if it's just like powder and foundation, some brow pencil, liner, mascara, lips, and like lipstick, and some blush, or maybe even some bronzing powder. Like if you want something very quick I just saying at the very minimum, it doesn't take a lot of effort to do that. For
Right.
gentlemen, it's kind of the same thing, right? We can coif ourselves a little bit. We can shave, as you said. We can
Or
choose
not,
a
or
nice
I
tie
use
shirt.
clippers these days though.
Okay, but you
That's
say
pretty
or
much it.
not.
Yeah,
But here's the thing, COVID or not,
right,
it's not an excuse to not show up professionally.
right,
I understand there are limitations today, but we have to work with what we got. I
right,
don't think we can all just pretend to be, oh, it's all real casual now. We can just, take all this down. No, because we are still on camera and we are still speaking, even virtually, where again, we need to have a certain image and a
right.
certain presentation about ourselves, and we need to be cognizant of it. So, like, even I'll be the first to tell you, I love hairdressers and I love getting my nails done. It's not happening right now because in Toronto, we're not allowed to have these personal care
Closed.
services
Right.
until at least
Friday.
July 5th,
I
which
thought,
is
well, are they coming, some things, are
no,
they part of
no, July
they're
5th,
not part of the
stage
first,
2 of
oh,
the
stage
plan,
2.
personal
Okay,
care services. Okay.
right,
So, I mean, I'm at a disadvantage too, right? So let me give you some examples. Normally, I have my nails done super professionally, right? Like at a nail salon. That can't happen right now. So what did I do? I went to the drugstore. These are basically nails that you just stick on, okay, with glue. I filed my nails down, and is it the same as a professional nail manicure? Probably not, but it looks pretty good and it makes me look professional on
right,
camera, right? Now there's the issue of the hair, right? Because a lot of us can't get our hair cut. I need my highlights done, but I work around it. I find a way to either pull it up, spray in some root touch up, maybe get a wig, something like that, that will help me through these hurdles when you can't help what's going on, right? Like
right.
we have no control over the fact that the government says we have to wait till stage 2 or July 5th to get a haircut, right?
Yeah.
But you can still work around it to do what you can to make yourself look as professional as you can, right?
Right. I was
That's what I'm
half kidding.
talking
I was
about.
half kidding. I cut my own hair and I do shave. I actually shaved this morning. I shave almost every 3 days, but I use clippers. So I haven't clean shaven with a razor in over a year. But
I'm
I
just
do
saying
agree
it's
with
not an
keeping
excuse
I
not
agree. I agree.
to
I
pay
agree.
attention,
I
right?
agree.
It's
I
not
agree.
an excuse to say I'm not going to show up professionally,
I
because we're
agree.
still doing business and we're still putting ourselves out
Still have to
into
look
the world.
presentable. You still have to look presentable. And I mean, I think, like you said, a lot of times, your looks, whether, I mean, just looking presentable. I think looks is a completely different thing. But yeah, like you said, look clean. You need to look clean, well prepared, and
Not
ready
like
to
you
go.
just rolled out of bed because you're
Exactly.
working
Your
at
hair,
home.
your hair is over here, and
Yeah,
exactly,
yeah. So
exactly.
you do what you can. And now you asked me also about starting a podcast. And I actually mentor and train people on starting podcasts and starting their own YouTube channel. And there's a lot to consider. So
Right.
I'm going to give you some tips on that too.
Hold on. What was the third tip in the other one?
Oh,
The
so
prepping.
we talked about image, we talked about our nonverbal communication, and we talked about preparing yourself that
Okay, so
like
that was
not,
number 3.
yeah. So
Okay.
now I'm going to tell you a little bit about how to, when you're starting a YouTube channel or a podcast, again, I think you need to be aware of a few things.
Okay.
So a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to start a podcast or a YouTube channel and I'm going to become an overnight sensation and I'm going to make like 100,000 off my channel right away.
Right.
That does not happen. It's very rare. Maybe
Right.
like if you're very lucky. So you have to know what you're signing up for. To make a podcast or YouTube channel successful, you have to be committed to that, which means you need constant content to put out, right? It
Right.
can't be that, oh, I'll do an episode, now, and then life's going to happen and I'm not going to do another episode for like 3 weeks or whatever. That inconsistency will not build following or audience and will not lead to a successful YouTube channel or podcast.
Right. Yeah. So consistency, I mean, consistency in everything, right? It's show up every day. You talk about appearance, like it's just showing up every day and putting in the work is what pays off. whether it's your appearance or whether it's the work, the on air, off air, the preparation, all of that is very key.
And there is a lot of preparation. It's the same thing. I don't know that you're doing this, but I know that I do. Like, I do a plan of what my topics are going to look like for the next 6 months and who's going to cover that and how's it going to work in. And, when is my when are we going to release? When are we going to edit? This is all scheduled stuff. These are, things that I think about constantly because I'm running two YouTube channels at the moment. One is the Janette's TV and podcast, so that we have guests coming. They have to be in a queue. They have to be edited. They have to be filmed. The questions have, this is a lot of work behind the scenes, and the interview questions have to be planned and what have you. And so we're in a queue on that, on our release. I also have my other YouTube channel, which is fairly new. I just started it not that long ago. And it's called Janette's Media Mentoring and Training. And it coincides with my e-zine, Janette's Media Mentoring and Training e-zine, and my Facebook group, Janette's Media and Mentoring and Training Facebook group. And I need to be prepared there too, because I'm also releasing media training videos all the time. I have to know, what topic am I going to cover? How is it going to relate? How does it fit in with my promotion? How does it fit in with the training I'm willing to give? And I need to make a script. So all these things take time, right? But that's what it takes. If you want to build on YouTube and make money on YouTube, through monetization or not, right? Because sometimes it takes a while to get the monetization. You got to know what you're doing, right? It's not a fly by night, Harry Carey, I'll put something today and I won't put something next week. No, these things have to be planned. And I believe that people should know what they're getting into before they decide to have a podcast or a YouTube channel, and be prepared for the commitment that it takes to really build it up.
I agree. So the way I went about it, and I mean, everything you're saying, 100%, I agree with. Planning, preparation, understanding who your audience is. You mentioned the esoteric aspect of it. You wanted to definitely address a wide, sort of broad base of people, but you want to have specific topics that you'll touch along at each kind of point, right? You talk about sort of scheduling your topics or kind of being a little bit, 6 months out in advance and planning what you're going to be talking about. I'll admit I went the opposite direction, but that's because I run a company. I run multiple companies. I'm busy kind of doing a lot of different things. I did this more as an outlet, an opportunity to have conversations. The way I started this one take, and the reason it's called one take is because it's literally one take. So I hit record, and whatever we talk about in the half hour gets put in on Premiere Pro. I put some, editing. Well, we have an editor now, but initially I just kind of had a template, and I just plugged the video in. And once it was done, I basically uploaded it to YouTube as is, with no editing, no cuts, just one take. That was the whole idea of it being called one take. And we use Calendly, and just, I send out invites to people on my LinkedIn and kind of make it very simple, right? So I'm consistent. We've done a number of shows. I don't think we've grown our YouTube. It's not so much meant for YouTube, but I think we've gone from 0 to 100 almost over the past year, which is not anything to write home about at all. But we do get thousands of views on LinkedIn. So we kind of use it for our own purposes. But the cool thing I found was, I think personally for me, and I think this is where, and this is the only point I'm going to make on this, was I think it's been an opportunity for me to speak to 100 people that I would have never have spoken to in the past year, which we lost out on because of COVID. I may have met you at an event, and like we talked about, sort of the networking, different things, and that was great, but that was all taken away. So for me, this has almost been like a bit of a part-time thing, a pastime that I enjoy, that I also am able to use as part of content for our business. So my question, I guess, would be, what do you think?
Yourself, though.
Yeah.
you just clarified what your intention was, right?
Right.
But I'm talking about if you really want to have a podcast
Right.
and a YouTube channel that is like a recognized show
Well, this is
and
where, yeah, that's what I was going to ask
you
you. Like,
know
where do you
gets
see?
followers consistently and
Yeah.
builds to a level where you can turn it into a form of a business like I have, right?
Yeah.
Where there's packaging and all kinds of things. Like nobody comes on my show just to come on my show. I don't have just guests like that. That we have to go through my packaging, right? Which
Okay.
when we get to these levels, because I have a 5 million plus audience that I built over the last 7
I was
years.
going to ask you, like, what kind of following do you have on YouTube? You have 5 million followers on YouTube?
No, 5 million is together. YouTube is
Okay.
only one of the platforms that I
Okay.
promote on. On YouTube, we just hit 12K and a
Okay.
bit.
That's cool. So you're able to monetize at least.
Yeah,
That's
and I'm getting like around 2,000 or so views, 2,000 plus views on average per episode, right? So that's consistently building and building following, and that's what I'm talking about. Like
right.
I understand that this is a great way for you to keep in touch with people and communicate and
It's
get
not
on
just
LinkedIn.
that.
And I'm not trashing that.
It diminishes a little bit. I apologize. I didn't mean it that it's just a way to keep in touch. We do use it. So I'll give you the example. So I'm not building the podcast necessarily to be a standalone revenue generator in and of itself.
Right.
So
That's my point.
Right. So Backers is so we're building an investment bank called Backers. We're the first crypto digital asset investment bank in Canada. We're an exempt market dealer. We're a money service business. We're part of the FTX Financial Data Exchange. We literally are able to now take in, like a bank, take in deposits, enable people to buy and sell crypto assets. So we've built that platform over the past 3 years. I use this as an opportunity to kind of get people like yourself who are in various walks of life to speak to your experiences, to basically come on and not only for myself, but for our audience. I mean, it's a smaller audience. It will grow. Each of the videos get, a few hundred views, but each person that comes on here has a story of where they've come from, what they've done. They have experiences. And yeah, I don't want to diminish what we're doing and sort of say it's some sort of hobby or pastime that I do on my own. The intention is that we're growing basically a I don't want to call it kind of like a library, if you will, of content that people can go back and they can get content or ideas or information or experiences or learning sort of tidbits from our guests.
I'm really clear on what you're doing, but you asked me to give you tips on
No,
podcasts and YouTube.
I like
and
it.
I'm talking about people who come to me who want to start a YouTube channel or podcast that they are looking to monetize it and have it for, more than an extension. Like, I'm not diminishing what you're doing. I get what you're doing. And you've been very clear about what your intentions are. But other people have other goals.
Of course,
and I'm looking to help them.
And that's the people that are watching, that they want to hear your tips of how they can expand their audience, for sure. And that's why the tips are amazing.
So my number one tip is consistency.
Yes.
Showing up at the same time and the same day every week and continuously building your following, grind it through until you become a well-known, established show with a huge following that people are clamoring to get on, and they will pay you for that.
Do you think daily or weekly is better? Do you think daily, weekly, like when you talk about consistency?
It depends on the show. It depends on the type of show. Okay. It's really contingent on the type of show it is. But I would suggest too, as a tip, if you want to get into this, well, like I said, know what you're signing up for, and maybe just write a small sort of plan or outline of what the show is going to be about. Maybe Google if there's other shows that are similar to that. How can you do it differently? What's your twist? What's your spin? What's your angle? What would make you stand out? And then start thinking about the topics you want to cover and the guests, how you're going to get them, and then also how you're going to promote it, right? Because you can't just make an episode of your show or your podcast. It has to get out there. There's a whole whole bunch of things to do in the promotional aspect too. Again, these are things I teach, so
Right.
but these are definite considerations as well.
Very cool. So one question you touched on there, I think is interesting. Sort of doing some research around shows that are maybe similar topic or similar niche or whatever. What, in your opinion, in the past year, obviously COVID's changed a lot of things. What are some techniques or different kinds of formats, I guess is probably the best way, that you have found that are more appealing or have been more well received by the audiences? Like, obviously we're doing a sort of a side-by-side, talking head in kind of a home setting. What are other types of, is a multi-person format? Like, what are some of the things that in your experience that you've seen that work well for people?
Okay, well, again, we are limited, and most
Obviously.
of us, including myself, can't really go to studios right now.
Right.
I know it seems odd that Canada allows US to come in and make like Hallmark movies and things of that nature, and we can film Hollywood style with, okay, yes, they do have a lot of COVID testing and COVID rules. But aside from newscasts, it's very difficult for shows like myself, even
Right.
like ET Canada. We can't go live on location anymore, because typically I would film also live on location
Right.
or in studio, and not so much through what we call this method is split screen. But I have now become very accustomed to this split screen method because I didn't have a choice, right?
Right.
So what do I see most of? The split screen, because that's the easiest and most convenient in given the circumstances. What I see works is, I think split screen works, but I think it works better when it's like this, like a one-on-one conversation.
Right.
I think when it becomes like a panel of more than 2 or 3 people, it's too hard to follow, and, it becomes complicated. And I don't mean complicated for the interviewer. I mean for the audience to follow and watch. I think they
Right.
tend to lose interest.
Okay.
And so I would say, this is kind of like the best platform at the moment.
You touched on there, live on location. I love live on location. Like I said, I run a 3-on-3 pro hockey league. We did lots of live on location, obviously on location for the events, but also we'd go out to sponsors and do stuff. So it's really fun to get out there, different environments, people it's cool to get somebody in their environment when they're comfortable to be able to ask them questions, especially if you're an interviewer. So definitely live on location. So the other thing you mentioned though is kind of scripting.
I have about 4 minutes left.
4 minutes? Yeah, no
I have
worries.
to go
We'll be very quick. You know what? Actually,
Okay.
well, and I was going to ask one question about sort of scripting out. What are your
Go
thoughts on live versus scripted, and actually, going live like on a Facebook versus recording and then editing? What? Just yes or no, live or not live?
I think there's a purpose for live, but like anything else, I'm going to reiterate and say, don't just turn the camera on and go.
Right. So
don't
preparation.
Wing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Even
Okay.
if you're going live, some people do lives with teleprompters and
Right.
they have it written out. That's not always necessary. What is necessary though is just having a rhythm in your head of what you're going to say from the opening to the body to the conclusion. So you talk in a specific time frame, which
Yeah.
should be under 3 minutes, and you don't ramble or go on tangents. You just say what you have to say clearly and concisely. The only way to master that is to have it in your head,
Right.
sort of like a pattern.
Perfect. So here we go. I appreciate Janette for joining me here. One last question. One word, piece of advice that you would give to a younger you or somebody else coming up into the same space that you're in. What would that one word be?
Confident.
I like it. There you go. Confidence. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate it. Everyone else is
And
one
before
take.
I go,
Powered by backers.
I did
Janette,
want to
go
mention
ahead.
how you can get to that masterclass, that media
Right.
masterclass.
Oh, we've almost have to go ahead.
Yes.
Where is it? Where
So
can they
we
get
want
you?
to go to www.Janette, JanetteBurke.com.
JanetteBurke.com.
There's a landing page.
Okay.
Yeah. JanetteBurke.com/landing-page, which is also JanetteBurke.com/ Media Masterclass,
Okay.
and you can register to attend. They start June 16th at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. They're going to run for a couple of weeks. The last one will be on July 7th as a live. Now, space is limited, so please get in while you can. And you're going to walk away with knowing the 3 things you must have in place to become a sought-after media guest or speaker on world stages. And if you visit that www.janetteburke.com/landing-page or www.janetteburke.com/media masterclass, there's a whole thing there written about what you're going to get out of it and why you should attend. I think everyone could benefit from a little media training. And also in that media masterclass, I'm going to teach you how you can reach my audience of 5 million plus by going through my brand showcase package with 4 proven steps, starting with my soon to be released media training course, which is a 12-week program starting July 14th. So sign up for the masterclass and you can learn all of that and more. Perfect. Justin, I want to thank you so much for having me here today.
Awesome.
And I really appreciate the opportunity. And
thank you for joining me. Yeah, awesome. And if you want to, if you ever want to raise
listening.
capital, you want to raise funding for any type of business, go to backers.ca. Anyways, this is powered by Backers. Sorry, One Take, powered by Backers. Justin Fox, Janette Burke. Thank you very much, Janette. That was awesome. Appreciate it. If you guys want to, start your own podcast, JanetteBurke.com. And I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Thanks. Hey there. Welcome to One Take, powered by Backers. Right?
No judging.
Yeah.
No judging.
The millennials are really changing that.
Is charm. No.
All success begins with desire.
I feel like I'm on fire right now.
OMG, baby.